Hey guys, it's Haley. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Haley, and from my previous videos, you may have recognized me as a 24-year-old child-free woman, but today I am here to talk about something a little bit different and something that there's still people in my life that actually don't know yet, but I am a grad school dropout. What? Yes, that is correct. You have heard me. I graduated college, but I then went to grad school and I dropped out. Now, this story is a little wild, it's a little crazy, it's a little all over the place. So, I guess bear with me if you're interested to find out why I left grad school and where I'm at right now, because this didn't happen too far back ago. So, let's just get right into it. So I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science degree from Texas A&M University in the spring of 2019. Now, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I never had an intention to go to grad school at all. I kind of just wanted to get into the workforce. I was kind of done with school. I did really well in school. You know, I graduated with a 3.928 GPA. Okay, so if my placement on the couch just changed a little bit, I had to get up and come back. You don't care. Back to the story. So I graduated in 2019 with my Bachelor's of Science degree in Ocean and Coastal Resources, and I had never had any intentions to continue on with grad school. I just wanted to get into the workforce. I just wanted to kind of start living a life, because when you're in college, it kind of all comes down to schoolwork, going to classes, going to lectures, going to labs, doing your homework, writing papers, writing research papers, having to figure out presentations, and then also, if you're like me, working a part-time job or several part-time jobs to make it through school. And that's exactly what I did. I worked a few separate part-time jobs while I was in my undergrad and, did my undergrad, graduated, and, I was just kind of ready to not be so into the school thing and to be able to actually live my life and to advance myself in a career potentially, which, as I'll get into the story, didn't necessarily happen within my field, but again, we're gonna get right into it. So after I graduated, I had a wildlife rehabilitation internship with a nonprofit organization back in Wisconsin, and that was an amazing experience. I really liked it. It wasn't necessarily a field I saw myself going into in the long run, but I always wanted to work in a wildlife rehabilitation center, at least at some point in my life. I at least wanted to try it out and, get a feel for it, and that's a great thing about internships. Unfortunately, the shitty thing about internships is a lot of them, at least in my case, aren't paid, or if they are paid, it's minuscule, so I went pretty much an entire summer without getting paid, and then held a few part-time jobs. And then, as we all know, from about a year ago, the pandemic hit us. I lost my job at that point, and it really kind of cut down to the wire for me where, I had already gone a couple of months without finding a career within my field. So, my field's more in the environmental sciences, and at this point, I graduated from Texas, but I had moved back to Wisconsin for my internship, and I had just continued to live in Wisconsin with my boyfriend throughout this and throughout the start of the pandemic until August, when we moved out to Idaho, and that's going to be because of grad school. I'll get right into that. So, pandemic hit, and I really struggled to figure out where I wanted to go or what to do, and, I was looking for jobs, and when the pandemic hit, it made my field even more competitive, because my field, in a sense, it seems like it's not essential. So a lot of environmental jobs, a lot of natural resource jobs got really cut down, and a lot of funding really got cut out too. So it made searching for jobs a lot harder because there were fewer of them, and with there being fewer jobs, the jobs that actually were there were a lot more competitive, because now you have the same pool of applicants, or probably even a bigger pool of applicants because of people that had lost their job from COVID. And so you have a larger pool of people with less jobs, so it just made everything more competitive. And, knowing that, I decided to open up my options to grad school. And even though I really didn't want to go back to school, it was another option for me. And I only let it be an option if I was able to get my hands on an assistantship. And if you're not sure what an assistantship is, it varies by school in the way that they pay you or the benefits that come with it. And there's two types of assistantships that I'm aware of. There might be another one, but Not too sure if that's correct or not, but there's teaching assistantships and there's research assistantships. So teaching assistantships is where you get paid, if you get paid, again, it varies by school, and as a graduate student, you help to be like the TA, the teaching assistant for a course. So you either help to teach the labs or help with the lectures. It, again, depends on the courses, depends on the school you go to, and all that fun stuff. So there's a teaching assistantship, and then there's also a research assistantship, which is more research-based, and you're paid to basically conduct research or to help assist with a research project. So I had applied for a research assistantship with the University of Idaho within the water resources program. And this assistantship didn't start until January of 2021, so of, this couple months ago. However, the professor for this assistantship wanted the student to come out in the fall to help kind of get the project set up and would possibly run under a teaching assistantship for the first semester. So this position I applied for, I interviewed for, I had my initial interview for it back in the end of June of 2020, and then I had another interview with the same professor, and then all the staff involved with that institute were there for the interview. So I believe there was 4 people total that were interviewing me for this position, and from what I know, it was kind of competitive. And so I had my interview and was told on a Thursday, and was told I would possibly hear back something within the next week. And the next day, I actually got an email saying that I had gotten the position, and I was freaking excited about it. Even though I didn't want to go to grad school, after I applied for it, after I was interviewing for it, it got me really excited, because it's like, cool, I can go back to school, go for something that I think I want to go for, and get it all paid for, because the assistantship I would have been under would have fully covered my tuition, would have fully covered all of my school fees for the most part, except for some like technology fees, but those were more web-based, but I don't know what the whole situation was. And then I would also get a stipend on top of it, where I would get a set amount of pay per pay period, and it was a really great opportunity. I'm in free schooling to get my master's degree and a pretty decent pay, in all honesty. And so when I was coming in, I was going to be starting as a teaching assistantship. I was really excited about it, and in all honesty, that was probably the easiest part about my graduate program, was that assistantship. So the project that was getting all set up, I was going to be the main student, focusing on a mass wide scale geographically on the distribution of mercury within the specific watershed up in the Pacific Northwest. I'm trying not to get too Pacific. Wow, living in the Pacific Northwest, haha. I'm not trying to get too specific about exactly where this project was, because I don't know if I'm allowed to really talk about this project outside of this, especially because I'm not doing it anymore. But anyways, so it was going to be basically biomonitoring mercury pollution within this large geographical region out in the Pacific Northwest here. And biomonitoring basically uses like bioorganisms that you can use in their tissues to detect mercury, and we were going to use a specific organism and use them in the lab to determine mercury. And I was told there was going to be the field portion of it, going to help collect these animals, and then a laboratory portion where it was going to be doing the dissection, and then there was also going to be like a GIS and a statistical component, and all of that going to a thesis. And another part too that I think is an important part to mention is, when I was interviewing for this position, I was told that the writing portion was going to be very, very heavy, and especially with doing a thesis along with it, and also extra opportunities to possibly work on publishable papers. And when I graduated with my undergrad, I was like, I never want to write another freaking paper again. And it's not because I'm not good at it. I'm actually really scarily good at writing papers. I just don't like doing it. I don't like how time consuming it is. And especially like with larger papers, I don't like the amount of time and effort that has to go into one specific paper, because I get very bored of one very specific subject and then having to continuously write about it. It bores me, and I quickly lose interest, and then it kind of makes the quality of my work go down a little bit. And so, knowing that there was going to be a lot of writing, I was just like, oh yeah, I have no problem with that, and I'm so excited about it. And I kind of feel like I was trying to just convince myself that it was no big deal, but it really was, and I should have just stuck true to my guns. But, you know, anyways, got the position, accepted it, and, you know, he wanted the students to come out and start in August, when the fall semester was going to be starting. And, you know, mind you, again, this is all in the pandemic, and, you know, that does play a very important role in the whole grad school experience altogether. The whole thing, everything was just kind of a mess, and it's going to get very complicated as I kind of go through this story. So I moved in August to Idaho to attend grad school, and the very first thing that was really hard about this whole process was the moving part was fine. Like, Brandon and I have moved so many times, you know, between Texas and Wisconsin, and so at this point, you know, we just were so used to moving, and, you know, moving here was really easy. We love the area out here, but the unfortunate part of the timing when we were moving was that we were actually going to be doing long distance again for a bit. And at the beginning of our relationship, we actually were in long distance when he was finishing his bachelor's degree for his final year, and I was going back to Texas to finish or to begin my junior year of college after I had taken a whole year gap. So, you know, during that time we were long distance, and, you know, we were going to be doing it again between August and Thanksgiving. And the reason for that was Brandon was going to be going back to Wisconsin to finish out his job and then get himself a job figured out here before he came out here. So he went back to Wisconsin then. I was out here alone, and that was already a little bit difficult because there was a lack of a social network for me here. I had known nobody. I only knew my professor and a few of the students that I had worked with in the institute. But other than that, because all of my classes were online, it was really hard to meet people. Right off the bat, I didn't know anybody. I felt very alone here. And then as soon as grad school started, everything started getting really hectic. COVID was getting more hectic. We were having bouts of up and downs here. There were times where we were actually going into quarantine periods where we were having classes being at home because of how bad things were getting, where everything would be online, which normally was fine, but then I also did have a few classes that the TA classes that I was teaching were actually in person. So those went to online a few times. And then if you remember from last year, we actually had a lot of the really crazy wildfires out here. So that made classes and work even more remote at home. So everything was kind of crazy with COVID. There was the wildfires going on, and then there was the long distance relationship. There was a social aspect and not having friends, you know, missing family, everything like that. So right off the bat, it made going to grad school really difficult. And in a normal given year, grad school is really hard, but this just made it even harder. So that is its own thing. But I didn't think that that necessarily affected the decision I made to leave grad school. So August, you know, getting settled in with school was really easy. There wasn't too much expectation on me with my project yet. So the project that I was working on wasn't going to start until January, because the project I was working on is actually fun, or was, I'm gonna say still is, because the project is still going on. I'm just not the person working on it anymore. But it's a project that is funded by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. So it's a set timeline where it starts in January 2021 and goes until December of 2022. So it's a full 2 years. And right off the bat, my professor asked me if I wanted to graduate, you know, normally, you know, within 2 years, which would have been 6 months before the project would have ended, or if I wanted to do that extra semester so I could be a part of finishing the project. And right off the bat, I told him that, you know, I'll take the extra semester. You know, if I'm being paid, it doesn't matter. I don't have to pay for the school. I don't mind the extra time being in school. But little did I know, as time went on, I was just like, I should have just frickin' taken the opportunity to just graduated earlier. But I didn't, and by the time it started becoming too late because the semester was going on, if I would have stuck to the normal timeline, there are certain things that I should have already been working on, like my thesis committee, which, to be honest, I still don't understand the whole committee thesis thing. I was just starting to get into that stuff before I left, and thank God, because the thesis thing was driving me through the wall. So, you know, working in August, September, you know, there wasn't too much on the project we were going to be starting yet, but I was starting to do a lot of literature review. And if you're not familiar with what literature reviews are, It's basically going through a bunch of similar articles and writing a literature review on that in some kind of organizational fashion to try to come across a point or some kind of, to support some kind of a claim or a point. To me, I'm not sure. I could be bullshitting this, but this is kind of the take I was taking on it. But I was helping to write a literature review in August when I was coming in that my professor's previous student had been working on. So she was already working on this literature review. There was one section that was not written yet, and he asked me if I want to write it. And I was like, yeah, I will write it because I want to take the opportunities. I want to impress you. And I'm like, it's one section that should be fairly easy. And he gave me an article, and he's like, I kind of want you to kind of take an idea from here and build off of that. And I'm like, perfect, cool. I read the article, I had my idea down, I told him what my idea was, and he loved it. He's like, run with it. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to run with it. And I wrote it, I felt very proud about it. And he's like, okay, now we need to stick it into with this other student's piece, and I'm gonna call her M. So I took M's paper and I stuck my part into M's paper and then sent it back to my professor, and he gave it back to me, kind of gave me some feedback and said, okay, we need to smooth this out. And from here on out, everything went downhill because no matter how much I tried smoothing it out, I guess my paper just never told a story. And oh my goodness, every time I was editing this paper and sent it back to him, every time he's like, what is the story of your paper? And to be honest with you, I've been told him multiple times, I don't even know what it is because I was told to do this, but now it's completely wrong. And when I go to change it and I try to fit everything in, the story kept changing a million times and it just kind of became irrelevant. And the more and more I was working on this paper, the more and more I was getting frustrated because, this wasn't just like a really small paper that is like 5 pages long. By this point, this paper had been 20 pages long and had over 100 in some sources. And yeah, that's a lot. I had never also written a paper with that many sources before. The most I think I have written was maybe 20 or 30 citations. So already having 100 citations and trying to organize them and trying to keep mental note of every freaking citation within this paper, it was becoming really hectic. And I didn't feel that my professor was helping me very much through this process. And I felt that I wasn't getting a lot of advice through this. And, you know, this professor's a great guy. He's amazing. He does amazing work and he's super smart. I really, really, truly enjoyed working with him. But I felt that I did not have a connection with this professor. And with this professor being my major professor, you know, this is the professor that would guide me through my entire master's journey and would be there for my thesis, would be there to help me write my thesis, not help me write it, but to be there as a guide for my thesis and a guide through grad school and hopefully a guide to help network. And there was already a disconnection that I was feeling back in September. And I had already hit a very low point in September, and I believe it was early to mid-September, I really hit a brick in the wall where I broke. And it was a Thursday. I had gotten done with the class that I was TAing for the day. And I actually talked with the professor of that course because the courses I was TAing for were forestry classes, which have nothing to do with my degree, obviously. And they were higher level, like 300 and 400 level classes. So classes that juniors and seniors take. And so I wasn't a very helpful TA for that class. The professor actually didn't expect too much from me except to help like grade some tests and to help direct questions from people that were on the Zoom because I helped control the Zoom portion of the class for some students that were exempt from being in person. You know, he gave me a lot of really solid advice and he gave me some really good people to possibly talk with. And so, you know, I took that from him and kind of reached out to these people. It wasn't really helpful too much. Some of them actually still never even just got back to me. And so the next day, which was a Friday, I actually sat down with my professor and kind of gave him my concerns about the program and how, like, I don't really want to do a thesis. And I was basically told that, you know, if I don't want to do a thesis, I couldn't do this project, which, you know, made sense because the whole point of this project was to also do a thesis off of it. And I knew that was the expectation of it. So, you know, I had to think about it over the weekend, you know, and I told him that, you know, I have a lot to think about right now. But even at that point, I was considering dropping from grad school, but had Brandon, you know, even though he was back in Wisconsin, to kind of help bring me back down. And, you know, over the weekend I thought about it and I'm like, you know what, it is only the beginning. I know it's really hard. It's grad school though. It's supposed to be hard. We're going to work through this and we're just going to keep trying with it. And, you know, classes got harder. I was working through this literature review while I was taking all these courses. And then we started getting into the project. And this is when things started to really go downhill, because I realized really quickly that this project, going into it, and I should have taken Em's advice before I had taken on this project, because I talked with her in between the interview processes of getting this position. And right from the get-go, this project was a literal shit show. There was very little setup for it. And in the end, I'm going to just give a very brief statement. This project was meant for a PhD student, not a master's student. This project grew out of proportion very fast. There were expectations that I didn't have on me going into it, but then soon became onto me, where it was, you know, the project was supposed to be focusing on 2 specific areas, and then my professor's like, let's do this whole area. And I'm like, dude, I'm one person, and, you know, having to do dissections, you know, for the grant proposal that we had from the EPA, there were so many that they wanted, at least, like, it was like a minimum of 200 this year and a minimum of 200 this next year. And that's another thing too with the dissection of this. You know what, I'm just gonna say it. They were crayfish, so we were gonna use crayfish for this project, and it actually quickly became a moral issue for me. And this is when, this coming into October, where we're starting to figure out the dissection process of these crayfish. And if I would have known this prior to accepting this position, I would have not taken on this position. But these dissections were going to be performed live. Yeah, you heard me. Live fucking dissections. I can't do that. I need to clarify a little bit on why the live dissections need to be done, and then I need to go back to my moral point of it. So the whole reason why the crayfish needed to be dissected live was because of the very specific tissue that we were targeting to do the mercury analysis. This tissue breaks down very quickly after the animal is deceased. So with that in mind, it's important that if we wanted to get that tissue intact, that we would have had to do the dissection pretty much while the animal is still alive. Now, we were going to do everything we could to make sure that they were kind of under, you know, for like being set on ice, where they kind of go into a dormant phase. So I did a practice dissection. I actually went down to catch some crayfish with a local school district, and I brought the crayfish back with me. Now, this was, I believe, October 16th. It was right around my mom's birthday. And I took it to this laboratory here in town. Actually gave me this guy's information, and he was going to show me how to do the dissection. And so I went in with the crayfish on ice. It was asleep, and I was doing some practice dissections on some crayfish that he had already had. Now, these crayfish were like preserved crayfish, so when I went to look at the tissue that we were talking about, I could see that it was broken down already. But I let him do the live dissection because I wanted to see how it was done. And this animal is still freaking moving during the whole process. And I get that it's probably just the nerves and everything like that. But right then and there, I was like, I can't do this. I cannot kill a crayfish. I cannot do it live. I couldn't do it. It completely against my morals. I am a very huge animal advocate. I'm a pescatarian. I already don't eat meat except for fish. But killing an animal, I couldn't do it, even though it is for the good of science, and I am a huge advocate for the sciences. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself to do it. So I had actually brought up the proposal to my professor on, hey, what is your opinion, or what is the thought on maybe bringing on an undergraduate intern to perform the dissections, but then I could do all the analysis on the tissue. And right away, that idea was shot down. No, you're going to have to do it. If you have an undergrad student, you know, they could skew your data. And, you know, this is your project, you know, if you want it to be as accurate as you want, you know, it should be done by you. And, like, I totally understood that. And I wasn't trying to come off as, like, I don't want to do this. It's like, I would literally be there with the student, but they'd be the one to, like, physically kill and do this to the animal because I couldn't do it. And so that was really frustrating because I was trying to come up with a solution to help myself, not to help that moral self with myself, but to still, does that make sense? The moral side of myself, while also being able to help out with this project. So right then and there, that was already another shot down on me. And then it started just getting more complicated with having a network with this project. There were so many other organizations involved with it. there was just so much disconnection between my professor and I. Like, there were emails that there was just disconnections between. I felt like every meeting I was going to, especially getting into November and closer to Thanksgiving, I was dreading them more and more and more, and I started breaking down more and more and more, and my mental health was deteriorating so bad from grad school and the entire experience, this project that it was having on me. I didn't want to do it. And another straw that broke the camel's back with this project was I was losing on the opportunity of the field work, or I was possibly going to be losing out on the field work. And the field portion of this project was the part I was most interested in, because as an undergrad, I did a lot of field work for my undergraduate research, and I was out on the field doing the work, and that's the kind of work I wanted to do. I wanted to do more like ecological work in the field. And when I was told that because of COVID, and we were going to be working with citizen science volunteers, that they could catch the animals and they could mail it to us, and we should figure out a mailing method to do this. So I'm like, okay, so the one part of this project that I was really, really, really excited for is no longer in my hands. I no longer can do this. With that, it was just like, so I get to just be in a lab, which I don't personally like doing, because I'm more, again, of an outside environmentalist than a laboratory person. I've had very little laboratory experience before, and I was willing to do it, of course, but I was also really excited for the field portion. And it might sound really petty, but again, your master's program is building your career. It's helping you get to your career. So if I couldn't get that kind of experience, what kind of help would that help me out with my career? It didn't seem beneficial to me, and this project was becoming more and more and more daunting to me. And so, I was like, okay, I guess now what? And so, Brandon moved out here, and I was waiting for him to come out here, and, I was talking to him a lot through this, and, he's like, wait till I get out there, things are going to change, it'll be a lot easier when you're out here, or when I'm out here, from his case. And even after he had moved out here, things weren't better. Things weren't easier. As December came around between winter break, things were getting worse. I was getting more frustrated. My mental health was really deteriorating from this. I was having constant anxiety attacks. There were days that I had literally struggled to eat. I just wasn't eating. I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I was too depressed to work out anymore. I was too depressed to do any hobbies. I was too depressed to really do anything outside of the schoolwork that I was too anxious to actually work on. So when it came time to me to work on the stuff I was working on, like the papers and looking into the research, I would pull it up and I would automatically just have a mental breakdown every time I was looking at this. And, I had lost the interest. The project was daunting, and my mental health was already shot through the roof. Why was I continuing on with this? So I was like, I'm going to give myself the winter break, try to figure things out. And I had actually applied for jobs a couple weeks before that, because I was already convinced that I wanted to leave my position. I wanted to leave grad school. And I came back at the start of the semester. I made it through a couple days, and I couldn't do it. I gave up. And so actually, it was even before the semester started, because I had to start work a week before, and I had gone to a couple meetings, and each of these meetings, I swear I was pretty blank in the face. I probably cried behind the screen after I closed out of it, and yeah, I ended up calling up my professor the day before classes were supposed to start, and I basically told him that I am going to be leaving grad school. So yeah, I left grad school for pretty good reasons, if you ask me. My mental health was deteriorated at that point. I had lost interest in this project, and I didn't feel that this project or the thesis, because the thesis was going to be based off this project, was going to help me in my career, because I don't know. I guess I don't know what I thought of when I took the position. I saw it as an opportunity to take something on, and yeah, that's pretty much what I saw. I saw it as an opportunity to leave home, my hometown again, and I saw it as an opportunity to move again, and an opportunity to, have a career where I wasn't just waitressing, or I wasn't just working as a receptionist, and I was actually doing something more beneficial for society. And I felt that I was fulfilling something in myself. But grad school wasn't doing that for me. It wasn't fulfilling. In fact, it was the opposite of fulfilling. It was more emptying, if you ask me, for myself anyways. So yeah, that's why I left grad school. But yeah, so now I'm now out of grad school, and I've been out of grad school for 2 months. Life is a lot better right now, and I am really getting started in a whole new other career for me right now that has nothing to do, or is very different from what my degree is in, and it's still in the scientific realm, and it's really going to be taking off. And the company I'm going to be not going to be working for, the company that I'm working for is really going to be taking off, and I'm really excited to be starting with them. And I actually just started with them 2 weeks ago, and I feel like this is already really fulfilling for me. Life is so much better now that I'm not in grad school, and with this job I have, I feel so much happier. I actually have free time on my hands right now where I can enjoy life again. I'm working out again. I'm getting back into hobbies. I get to enjoy time with Brandon since he's out here with me now. And we also just got a new puppy, and, you know, getting to, you know, be able to train him and get to watch him grow up a little bit. It's a lot easier right now being able to do that without being in grad school. So for me, grad school was the wrong choice, and it wasn't the wrong choice. It was just, it wasn't the choice for me. And, you know, I'm glad I realized it after the first semester rather than continuing on and realizing it down the road. And yeah, I really wanted to make this video because I know when I was looking to drop out of grad school, I was trying to find other videos, and I was actually looking on Reddit, I was looking on YouTube, and I was trying to connect with other people on leaving grad school. And while it was really helpful, I kind of wanted to give my own personal story, because I feel like the reasons why we go to school, or the reasons why we leave something, the reasons we do anything is just different. We're all different people, we're all unique, we all have different stories, and this is my story, and this is why I left grad school. And just know that, you know, it's okay to change, it's okay to let go, it's okay to change your mind and to try different things. You're not a quitter. I thought I would feel like a quitter after I left grad school, and I'm not. I still gained what I gained from grad school, and I'll still be able to take that with me wherever I go. But this was ultimately the best decision for me, and I'm just really happy with it. And yeah, so yeah, hope this video helps if it does, or if it was interesting. If not, sorry. But yeah, anyways, I don't know how to end videos very well, so it's just a little awkward ending here, so I'm just gonna say goodbye. So yeah, have a good day, guys, take care, and hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend and enjoy this spring weather that's coming up. It is gorgeous out, and yeah, definitely get outside. You know, COVID, I know we've all been pretty locked up indoors, especially with this winter. It's been very daunting, it's been very depressing, and it's just been very lonely. So get out there, get outside, get active, enjoy yourself, be safe, socially distance, and yeah, take care, guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!